Well, good afternoon. Um, Welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist of Medfield. Sorry. I am Rich Mastronardi. I serve as the chair of the executive board at First Parish. We are honored to welcome so many of you here today for our installation service of Reverend David Egan. We wish we could all be together in person, but due to the pandemic, this is not possible. However, we are truly thankful that we are still able to gather virtually to share in this sacred event. If you would like to follow along with your order of service, please follow the link that is in the chat box. You all will be asked to speak during the act of ordination with the words found in your order of service. Now, as we enter into this sacred space, please remember to keep your microphones muted unless you are speaking. Welcome to this place. Here we search for truth and understanding. We celebrate life and contemplate its mysteries. We share healing and wholeness. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whoever you love, we are glad you are here with us today.
Thank you, Rich, and let me join you in wishing a good afternoon to everyone as we gather for this sacred occasion today. I'm Reverend Eric Cherry. I serve as the minister of your neighboring UU congregation in Franklin, Massachusetts, and I'm delighted to join you for this special day in the life of your congregation, the installation of your minister, Reverend David Egan. An event of this sort automatically invites a sense of renewal, a renewal of self, a renewal of relationship, and a renewal of the spirit. The teaching in the 13th chapter of Matthew's gospel comes to mind for me. You are the light of the world. A city built on a hill cannot be hid. No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your God in heaven. Let us now gather in worship to be renewed, now and every time that we gather, and may this installation hang a signal of light and love to the world. Amen. The members of the Ministerial Search Committee, Shirley Riga, Karen Wayans, Duncan Glover, Sarah Zatoli, Chris Flaherty, Jess Raza, and Rebecca Stevenson. On behalf of this congregation, you sought, found, and recommended Reverend David Egan to be your church's minister. In a spirit of gratitude, would you please lead our chalice lighting this afternoon?
Thank you, Rev Cherry. This is Duncan Glover. I will begin. We light our chalice this morning, or today, in the spirit of gratitude, thankful for the ministry that Reverend Dave Egan brings to our congregation.
We light this chalice for service to this congregation, for celebrations of life and death, marriages and dedications.
We light this chalice for leading worship, grounding our congregation in spiritual practice, helping us to navigate the wonders and stresses of the world, learning how to make sense of good times in bad.
We light this chalice for service to the wider community, for feeding the hungry, nurturing the lost, welcoming the stranger, and holding the broken, for encouraging us to more fully live our Unitarian Universalist faith in the world.
We light this chalice for being a friend and mentor to our children, for listening to their dreams and their fears, for teaching them to search their hearts for truth and to spread their light into the world.
We light this chalice for all the conversations we have not yet had, for all of the prayers not yet spoken, for all of the laughter yet to come, and for all of the tears not yet shed.
We light this chalice in celebration of your ministry. Thank you for being a leader, a comforter, and a friend. Thank you for being our minister.
And as Reverend David lights the chalice in the sanctuary, I'd like to invite you from your various locations, but with a true unity of heart and mind, to join together in singing our opening hymn, which is Love Will Guide Us. Because of technical challenges, we ask all to please mute your microphones during the hymns, but be sure to raise your voices, and let's feel that experience of togetherness as we join together in singing now, Love Will Guide Us. And now with the members of First Parish's Executive Board, Rich Mastronardi, Mary Corthell, Bill Wyans, Sarah Zatoli, Nate Raza, and David Russell, please lead David and the congregation in the act of installation.
Okay, we come to you with our hopes and our fears. Will you lead us in building a welcoming religious community, tolerant and appreciative of our differences, loving and compassionate of heart, courageous and independent in spirit?
I will.
We come to you with our joy and our pain. Will you listen to us, walk with us, challenge us, and dare us to grow?
I will.
We come to you in celebration and in sorrow. Will you lead us in laughter, join us in tears, support us in change?
Will.
We come to you in confusion and despair. Will you struggle with us and stand with us, reason with us and reflect with us as we strive to walk in the Spirit and the ways of truth?
I will.
We come to you overwhelmed by others' needs. Will you keep us in touch with their pain and their worth? Bring us renewal to keep on the way.
I will.
We come here seeking nourishment for our troubled spirits. Will you point out the rainbows, show us the sacred, and teach us how to listen to our hearts?
I will.
Congregation.
Will you share with
Will
us?
you share with us
the
joy
and
and the rapture
and the
the
toil
toil and the pain
of a
of a
working
working ministry?
I will.
These are
These are awesome responsibilities you undertake today.
Search
We
your
ask
Ask
you
you
to
to search
search your heart once again.
Do
Do
you
you
really
really
mean
mean it?
I do. I come to lead, but you are leaders too. I come to inspire, but you have vision too. I come with gifts, but you bring talents too. Will you join us in welcoming all at the table?
We will.
Will.
Will you work with us to serve our neighbors, to feed their bodies, their hearts, and their minds as we feed our own?
We will.
We will.
Will.
Will you walk with us when our faith is shaken and our spirits are low?
We will.
We will.
Will you share with us all of your talents and gifts?
We will.
We will.
Will you share with us the joy and the rapture and the toil and the pain of this ministry?
We will.
We will.
These are awesome responsibilities that you undertake this day. I ask you, search your hearts once again.
I never had it on
You-
hold.
We do.
We do.
Do.
Thus
Do
We
we
pledge.
pledge?
May
May we remember always the spirit of this covenant and the promise of its fulfillment.
During these troubled times, we often forget that we have a lot to be thankful for. We have this parish and this congregation to provide us with comfort and support. In our case, we are especially blessed to have you, Reverend David, as a spiritual guide and friend. On behalf of First Parish Medfield, please accept this gift in celebration of your installation. Now, there is a gift there someplace, and I'm not sure where it is. Louise, can you help out here?
Thank-
Oh, we got it.
Shall I open it? After, I don't know how this works.
I
All
don't
right,
know how to see it.
apparently open it. Wow, thank you so much. This is such an honor. Thank you. This is so thoughtful. It says, Dear Rev Dave, in celebration of your installation, please accept our love and our gratitude, your First Parish family. Wow. I want you to notice this beautiful golden bow. It's very nice. There's some sort of velvet wrapping paper. It's fancier than I've ever seen. But then to make it not as fancy, there's a blue painter's tape holding it all together. This is great. Wow. Oh my goodness, it's a stole. Wow. Oh my goodness, that is beautiful. Well, if there was someone else here, maybe you could do that, but I will put on my brand new First Parish stole. Oh my goodness, that is gorgeous. That is absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much, everyone. That means so much to me. Thank you.
So, Reverend David, we, First Parish Medfield, we look forward to a meaningful worship and service with you that not only benefits us, but the greater community. We are very grateful that you chose us to serve as your settled minister. We are truly blessed. Thank you.
And I too am blessed. I look forward to this long and fruitful ministry together.
A day full of blessings and honors. And this next one is an honor for me to invite Reverend Carol Rosine, my predecessor in Franklin, and the mother of Reverend David Egan, to lead us in prayer. Reverend Carol.
And now let us join our hearts and minds
in a moment of prayer. O Holy One, source of goodness and of peace, God of our kindest intentions, as David continues his ministry with these people, may he know your guiding presence so that he may listen with an open mind and heart, speak with sincerity and compassion, and act always with integrity and humility. David will be called to minister to all who come to this place seeking healing, seeking understanding, seeking answers, seeking a reason to continue on the path of life. May your presence ground him, inspire him, and console him when he feels alone, overwhelmed, or misunderstood. May your presence bring a lightness to his voice, to his step, and to his heart. May your presence bring him the courage to speak the truth with clarity and confidence. May your presence bring harmony, laughter, and joy. O God, source of life itself, may your spirit of goodness, wisdom, truth, and love abide with this congregation as well. For the ministry of this church resides in the hearts and minds of each who enter this sacred space. May the coming together of this congregation and this minister bring forth the best that is within them all. And when they fall short of their most decent aspirations, may they know compassion and forgiveness so that they may serve each other and the common good, so that together they may move away from hatred and division and toward a vision of peace and justice, understanding and love, always deep, abiding love. In the name of all that is most holy and in all the holy names we say together, amen.
Amen indeed, and may our prayer be received and reflected in our lives, in our ways, in the days that come. And now let's join together in singing Nearer, My God, to Thee. Again, please sing out from your various locations. Feel the togetherness of the Spirit, but take a moment to be sure that your microphone is muted. We'll now sing Nearer, My God, to Thee.
Nearer
such a joy for me and for all who gather this afternoon to be together, to share this special occasion with the members and friends of First Parish UU in Medfield, and with beloved friends, with family, with colleagues who are all a part of your circle of care and commitment in faith and love, whether you know it or not, as you install Reverend David Egan as your minister. It is good to be together always, but especially on occasions such as this, where it becomes all the more clear that togetherness is symbolic of how we are all one body, how humanity is whole, how creation is holy. And especially important this very day in the midst of a long threefold reckoning with mortality, with civics, and with culture. The stain of COVID, of proto-fascism, and of white supremacy culture, they gather in our midst. These and more have disrupted, for worse and for better, what we have thought of as common worship, which couldn't be clearer than during a virtual-only installation service. And these, our gathering, asks of us something more than what was previously commonplace. Even this idea of being the light of the world, a city on a hill, it became commonplace, a bit stale. It lost its saltiness, if it ever had any for our tradition to begin with, and there have been times when I believe it did. So the wisdom of Godspell, all the way back from 1977, is calling out to us today. Many of you remember how the lyrics went. You are the light of the world, but if that light is under a bushel, it's lost something kind of crucial. You've got to stay bright to be the light of the world. And you are the salt of the earth. But if that salt has lost its flavor, it ain't got much in its favor. You can't have that fault and be the salt of the earth. And yes, you are the light of the world, but the tallest candlestick, you know how it goes. Ain't much good without a wick. You've got to live right to be the light of the world. On an installation Sunday, I suspect what you're thinking is, well, that's what we got Reverend Dave for, right? I know, as if it were that easy. But the teaching doesn't say your minister is the light of the world, or your neighbor is the light of the world, or your steeple is the light of the world. It says you are the light of the world. You are the city on the hill. And during an installation service, it's important to remember that this is not a coronation. Like Dave's funny invitation suggested, an installation is a little more like bringing a piece of new equipment into the house, maybe even an indispensable piece of powerful equipment, something you couldn't get along without. And those of you who may be exhausted might wish it were otherwise. But to be the city on the hill, it means that you have to do the hard stuff. Much of the time, his job is to entice you toward that. sometimes even to give advice about how to do that, and to heal the bruises, the brokenness that are an inevitable expense of the hard work of faith. But you are the light of the world. And let me remind you of a story that helps to illustrate the need for some renewed saltiness. Reverend Bill Sinkford, former president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, shared this true story a few years back. He talked about a conversation that a member of his UUA Leadership Council had with the director of mission work for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. Apparently, the two ministers were talking about their denominational growth strategies. The Mormon leader offered that proportionate to size, Unitarian Universalists were actually better at attracting people to visit their congregations than even well-focused Mormons. But, he said, you're terrible at keeping them. If your churches, he said, were half as successful at integrating and retaining members as we Mormons are, then Unitarian Universalism would be the most dangerous church in America. It reminds me of that other story of the town that had three churches, the Presbyterian Church, the Methodist Church, and the Unitarian Church. And each church was overrun with pesky birds. And one day, the Presbyterian Church elders called a meeting of the congregation to decide what to do about the birds. And after much prayer and consideration, they determined that the birds were predestined to be there and they shouldn't interfere with God's divine will. The Methodists formed a committee to decide the action to be taken. They decided that they were not in a position to harm any of God's creations, so they humanely trapped the birds and set them free a few miles outside of town. And 3 days later, the birds were back. It was only the Unitarians who were able to come up with an effective solution. They put the church's membership book under the place where the birds perched, claimed that the droppings the birds left on it were equivalent to signatures, declared that they were now full-fledged members of the church, and ever since then, they only come to church on Christmas and Easter. Have you ever heard a better example of salt that's lost its saltiness than that? And we laugh, I fear, because sometimes it hits a little too close to home. So what's it going to take? Well, you may have figured this out already. To be the light of the world, to be salty, to be the wick on a tall candlestick, you have to do more than shine. You have to matter. You have to demonstrate that you're needed. You have to prove that your town and your world need you. And yes, you know that there have been times when that has been abundantly true for your church. I'll bet you could name a few examples of that right now, but I don't want you to. In fact, I want to ask you to put a moratorium on that for at least the next 12 months. No more looking back at good stuff. Stuff that happened once upon a time. Today, you've got a chance, a remarkable chance to set on the path to become the most dangerous church in Medfield. And that's going to take looking around you and looking forward. The comfort of the past isn't healing in this moment. It's more like that opiate we heard about. And I swear nothing helps us repel visitors and new members quite so much as dwelling on successes that happened before. Oh, that and the edifice complex. Suffice to say that having prime real estate and traditional architecture is no longer a source of respect and power in the 21st century. That disappeared decades ago. Instead, it only comes with a responsibility to use that space you have inherited. Have you earned it? Perhaps. But remember, it was a gift to you from congregants long ago whose saltiness hadn't lost its flavor. And as the inheritor, you've got to figure out how to use it well. I'll say that your Black Lives Matter banner is a very good example of that. And like nearly all Unitarian Universalist congregations, please understand and take to heart that to be truly relevant, even the most dangerous church in town, you should have that banner facing your eyes, virtual or otherwise, Sunday after Sunday. Because in the words of another famous sage, we hope and pray that our lives will preach more loudly than our words. Today, as your minister-elect for the past 12 months becomes your settled minister, recommit yourself to the fact that you are the light of the world, that you know what your mission is, and that you can't let the chaff separated from the wheat become more important. Sometimes it will be hard to remember this. You will be tempted to forget your great mission. Today, this very evening, commit yourself to avoid that temptation. When you feel the temptation, take a hint from Reverend Larry Pierce. Larry Pierce, who reminds us that the work of liberating, of healing, of transforming is about open engagement within Unitarian Universalism. And that if every time that a person was tempted to raise one or all of the everyday difficulties of being a real-life congregation over the importance of mission, if every time that temptation struck, we could bring these more important commitments to mind, what we might do together is almost unimaginable. What could happen if we took being the light of the world seriously? You would be the salt of the earth. You might even become the most dangerous church in Medfield. May it be so. And amen. John Cornett will now introduce this morning's special offering.
Good afternoon. My name is John Cornett, and as a member of First Parish, I serve on the Religious Education Committee and the Committee on Ministry. It has been my pleasure to work with Rev Dave in many ways over the past year, and Rev Dave has asked that today's offering be split equally between two organizations that are close to his heart. First is the Unitarian Universalist Association's Living Tradition Fund. This fund is an essential service that focuses on three types of support for ministry. The Living Tradition Fund provides need-based scholarships for theological students who have completed a full year of theological education. It provides new minister assistance to reduce the burden of high educational debt and repayment. And it gives emergency assistance grants to seminarians, ministers, religious professionals, other congregational staff, retired ministers, and their loved ones. The Living Tradition Fund helps ensure that we continue to have highly qualified religious professionals in our pulpits like Rev Dave. Your donation today will help ensure that our UU faith continues to thrive well into the future. Your offering today will also be going to the Unitarian Universalist Urban Ministry. For nearly 200 years, the UU Urban Ministry has been working side by side with individuals and communities in Boston to create opportunities and instill hope for a brighter future. Headquartered at the First Church in Roxbury, the UU Urban Ministry operates programs that provide education and enrichment programming for children and youth, emergency shelter for individuals and families fleeing from domestic violence, and job and education readiness training for survivors of domestic violence. An important part of their mission is bringing together people from different walks of life to work toward justice and equality. Thank you to Reverend Mary Margaret Earle, their executive director, who will be speaking shortly, for her steady and devoted leadership to the UU Urban Ministry. Now, please take this opportunity to go find your checkbook and give generously to these two fabulous organizations. Make your check out to FPUU and send that check to P.O. Box 215, Bedfield, Massachusetts, 02052. That address can also be found in the order of service. Our offering will now be given and gratefully received.
So good to see you and to see everyone here at your service. You're installed now like a telephone. Now we have to charge you, plug you into the wisdom of the ages, fill you up, lucky you. Dave, Egan, your work with these good people, in your work with these good people, there is only really one thing I should charge you to do, and that is to love them. Love them as you love yourself and your family. Love them as if you had been commanded to do so, as if loving them were part of the greatest commandment of our heritage. Love them when they do well. Love them even more when they fail. If you can manage that, it'll be much easier for them to love you when you fail. Let your heart expand with love over and over again and again, even though it feels like it will break. If you're lucky, says our colleague, James Ford, it will break. More than 700 years ago, the poet Rumi revealed a conversation he had with God. He said, "What about my eyes?" And God said, "Keep them on the road." He said, "What about my passion?" And God said, "Keep it burning." He said, "What about my heart?" And God said, "Tell me, what do you hold inside it?" And Rumi said, "Pain and sorrow." God said, "Stay with it. The wound is the place where the light enters you." You've already learned that to live in this world is to experience, along with many joys, much pain and sorrow. To minister in this world, if you're doing it right, is to allow yourself to stay with the pain, stay with the sorrow, not only your own, but that of others, especially with that of others, so that their pain and their sorrow may be made more bearable by your presence, by your loving presence. It isn't easy to stay with pain and sorrow and still manage to be happy, to be fun to be with, to be kind and compassionate, to keep working for justice. But lucky for us, wise people have gone before us to show us the way. Meister Eckhart, a mystic of the 13th and 14th centuries, wrote, "Keep your eye on the functioning of your inner life and start from there to read, to pray, or to do any outward deed. If, however, the outward life interferes with the inner life, then follow the inner. But if the two can go on together, that is best of all. And then we are working together with God." Keep your eye on the road, which is the inner life. You too can read in Tom Owen Toll's book called Love Meets the Dragons, a field manual for ministers, that if you fill your calendar with important appointments, you'll have no time for God. If you fill your spare time with essential reading, you'll starve your soul. If you fill your mind with worry about budgets and offerings, the pains in your chest and the ache in your shoulders will betray you. If you try to conform to the expectations of those around you, you will be forever their slave. Work a modest day, then step back and rest. This will keep you close to God. And no matter what our theology says, Dave, the metaphor of being close to God still holds. It means you are close to the infinite and close to that than which no greater can be thought, that on which everything else depends. We may not know what it is, but we have an inkling. We have an inkling that we're part of something grand and beautiful. And it is to that beauty and that grandeur as they are revealed in the people and the things of every day that we owe our loyalty. So two of the most important inner things are love and family. Yes, your family have bodies, so they appear to be outward, but they are central to your well-being and therefore the health of your ministry, the health of your relationships with them depends on your health on the health of your relationships with your family, and the well-being of your ministry depends on your love. And love, which is so often confused with other things, is really just an engine of survival, as Leonard Cohen says, the only engine of survival. So as you continue in your work, Dave, First, ask yourself, what's the most authentically loving thing you can do? What's the most authentically loving thing you can say? What's the most authentically loving thing you can practice? Sometimes the answer is not what you want to hear. Sometimes it's not what anyone wants to hear. Because sometimes the most authentically loving thing to do is to speak a difficult truth. And sometimes it is indeed not to conform to the expectations of those around you. And sometimes the most authentically loving thing to do is nothing. Let the world turn. So I charge you today to keep your eye on the inner life and be not concerned about important appointments and budgets and essential reading. Rather, think about that which sustains and strengthens all that you love and all who love you. Put aside the temporal in favor of the eternal. And just in case you're wondering what things are truly eternal, let me remind you that justice and equity and compassion share top billing with love and family. You gave me 6 to 8 minutes, but Prophet Micah only needed 1. Perform mishpat, justice, and ahavat chesed, loving kindness, and walk humbly with your God. Be strong. Amen.
Another colleague, mentor, and friend who has shaped David into his ministry is the executive director of our beloved UU Urban Ministries, headquartered at First Parish in Roxbury. Reverend Mary Margaret Earl, would you please charge this congregation as it has installed its minister?
It is my honor to be here with you this afternoon as you affirm and celebrate the coming together of congregation and called minister. You have called Reverend Dave Egan to minister to you in your human struggles, on your human journey, to join you in nurturing and enduring community, and to labor with you in shared vision and encourage to build a better world. I have known Reverend Egan since he was a student minister in Canton, bringing groups of congregants to serve at the UU Urban Ministry in Roxbury. He gathered volunteers to serve alongside neighbors in a food distribution program here. I watched the way he operated with a quiet humility and good cheer, watched him work easily with people across the differences of race and class and faith and neighborhood. And so I asked him to co-lead our Seeing Me in the World program, in which we welcome UU youth from around the country to visit our campus in Boston's Black community. in order to learn more about the history and legacy of racism. And this year, the UU Urban Ministry welcomed Reverend Egan to serve on our board. We invited him because he was someone who brought with him many gifts, an easy temperament, a kindness, and importantly, a commitment and a call to justice. And so I couldn't have been gladder than to be part of this special day when we gather to honor the relationship between him and First Parish UU of Medfield, honored to bring to you a church wise enough to call Reverend Egan a charge. First, I charge you with responsibility for this community. You, the congregation, are this church. So while a minister called by you will help call you forward, and while a skilled and differentiated minister will nurture health in a congregation and contribute to its well-being, this is also your work. It is your work to ensure that First UU is a congregation with strong and clear boundaries, with good and healthy relational practices, a safe place for all to learn and to grow. I charge you with owning this responsibility and being willing to play an active role in the health of this community. I charge you with kindness. Just as Reverend Egan is called to care for you, his people, with love and respect, I call you to do the same to him. In all frankness, congregations can be hurtful to ministers who are called to serve by their loving hearts. Unweighed and rough criticism, standards set so high that one would need wings to reach them, a never-ending river of demands for time. These are the dangers that can wear down a hopeful ministry. We each long for our ministers to meet our needs, to see us and love us and to be there for us. But we must also remember that ministers are human beings, limited and imperfect. Just as you will be imperfect, so too will Dave be imperfect. Be kind, be ready to quickly forgive small mistakes, speak directly to him, not about him, if more important mistakes are made. Be ready to make amends and always assume the best. I charge you with appreciation. Appreciate Dave's gifts. Even as the years unfold, remember to take time to see the special gifts of spirit and conviction that he brings to this calling, and name those gifts to him and to others. I charge you with remembering the whole life of your minister. Remember that Dave is a whole human being. Support him in balancing his life, to care for people, to accompany them in the joys of births and happy milestones, and in the deep sorrow of loss is a demanding endeavor. Support Dave in taking time for the renewal of his own spirit so that his spirit can sing with you for years to come. Remember that there is no greater call than the call to family, and Dave must also have time for his. Respect the boundaries that he sets for tending to his home life. And I charge you with courage. You called a minister with a loving presence and also one who is committed to making this world more just. As he lives into his calling, he will invite you to move in ways that may feel new and scary and hard. I call you to summon your courage and be willing to step into territory unknown to you, because that is what is required to make change, real change, during our time upon this earth. This moment is a profound and troubling moment that we are in. It is the kind of moment that may not come again in our lifetimes, a time of great inequity, division, turmoil, and uncertainty. While church is a place rightly to find comfort and grounding, it is also an institution that has the power to meet this moment and to help our world give birth in this crisis to something new and better. You have called a minister who is a minister for this time. May you walk with him in faith and into the great potential that lies ahead. Amen, and may it be so.
Amen indeed, and may the charge be integrated into the lives and days of this congregation. Our closing hymn this afternoon is Lean on Me, composed by Bill Withers and a companion for us all in ministry and beyond. Let's join together in singing from our various locations, again with microphones muted, please. We gather to sing Lean on Me together.
Friends, it is with a great humbleness of heart, with clear focus of the mind, and eyes open to the possibilities, that I gratefully and completely accept your call to faithfully serve this congregation as your 39th settled minister. May the love that we share with the world bring comfort to the wounded, justice to the forgotten, and a fierce, fierce love to a broken world that just longs for a better way. And as we do so, lean on me as I lean on you. For friends, we're in this together. And now, as I extinguish our chalice, know that the light we share together can never truly go out. The light in our hearts will be together in this community, in this congregation, and in this world for so long as there are people like you and me and us to do this work together. Here ends the worship. Let our service begin.